get ready to start our program for the day. The theme is the conservation of our tribal land and natural resources. The President offers his apologies. He's en route to a funeral in Rapid City, so he can't be here with us, but he said to, as you know him, charge ahead. And then we also know that there's another funeral this afternoon, so we're going to do the best we can. A little slow start here, but my Hunka mother, Patty Evans, before she died, she wrote a letter to all of us kids. And one of the things she said to emphasize is always take time to visit. Always take time to visit when you can. So I was kind of watching the crowd here. This guy over here is a politician. He's jumping all over the place. That's all right. Our president, Student Association President, Ryan Eaglefeather. So with that, then we're going to go ahead and ask Francis to offer prayer, and we'll have the drum sing a song. Please stand. Song first.
Bye. vastella, olon astea ja. Hoja votsekin on se, hoja tehdä prinktalom. Hoja trankaasilla. Ja kean petoa vaste o kihiojapi, jonka he vopilla hetsa. Na vitsoza ne on Jakob, jonka hona taakon kiuksampi na petu, kelle on keapikte, kelle on kitsipi o hetsel taako asteste eapin. Nis omenitse on aste hapikte, kelle on kitsipi ja onkta, hoja petu, kelle on simpelo. Hotsan kean petu, kelle tona hoja ka kiisapi, nis kuusapi, o kuusetik tahpaapi, kelle na on kaasilla musivitsakilla jo. Na on kiisiä onkia po, o hetselän petukele, hoja zania, taakun kiuksampi, kelle ablesse ai tsunkun piktelo, hoja on petukele hojevalo, o hetse tuolla, mitä köjäsen.
Hey,
Hostelo. To Francis Cutt, thank you for the prayer drum group, some beautiful songs. And Gina, we thank you for your help getting this morning started. Roger, let's put up the strategic plan goals. Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the 47th annual SGU Founders Day week. My name is Phil Baird. I've been home 10 months now as serving as provost and CEO of the college. And I come in at a time when the university is kind of reshaping its next chapter. And after 47 years, we're dealing with a broad range of things, everything from accreditation to a change in the White House administration, just a lot of change coming. And we're pretty busy. We're really busy at the university trying to prepare for the future. One of the things that the accreditation process requires us to do is to show how we're moving forward and planning the future. And so toward that end, we have a strategic plan. And up there, coming up, is the 4 goal areas of the strategic plan. My predecessor, Paul Robertson, over a year and a half ago, gathered up the stakeholders here on campus and began plotting out that future in terms of a strategic plan. What we're doing here today for the programs, tribal programs that are here, is we're asking you, in terms of sharing what you have within your program, within your organization, what kind of plans do you have? We've used these community forums a lot to talk about the problem, but now it's talking about action plans, talking about solutions, talking about common ground. So this program, this week program, it was geared toward inviting tribal, BIA, and community programs to come together and give us just a brief summary of what your plans are. The 4 questions that you were asked is to talk about briefly, what are your key planning areas? What's keeping you awake at night, if you want to call it that? Part 2 is, what are your priorities? What are your priorities in terms of your organization? Number 3, there's a lot of ongoing discussion about workforce development. And part of our responsibility, part of our mission is building up the human resource base of the reservation. And the 4th piece, the most important piece, is to look at where and how the university can come in and help each organization, each program to further their work. We can't do it by ourselves. We already know that. The partnerships and the collaborations are key. And while the university in its nation-building work has done a lot, and I'm always amazed the last 10 months thinking, if there wasn't a St. Nicholas University, how many gaps there would be, not only locally, not only in the state, not only regionally, but even nationally and international. St. Nicholas University's handprints have been to a lot of places, but we know we can't do this all by ourselves. We have to do the partnerships and the collaborations. So we have 4 goal areas that are driving us. And go to number 4. Well, first of all, strengthen the institution. Academics is goal number 2, academic enhancement. Number 3, Lakota language and culture. And number 4 is the tribal nation building. And that, in part, is where the rubber meets the road in terms of land and natural resources. The first half, or I guess up to this point, a lot of our work has been on, we only have 2 resources here with the tribe, people and land. Try to keep it simple. We spent a lot of time on the human resources side. Now, how do we bring in the land piece to bring them all together, plan accordingly, and again, strengthen the Sicango Yati people, the quality of life that we have here. We know the challenges, we know the problems. We don't want to focus on that. We're not at a place where we're hoping to talk about the future. So for the people program reps that are here, just giving you a little more time here to maybe put some thoughts together. That's kind of we want to listen to you and what you're doing. And then after that, we're going to ask others to join us in the circle and maybe share some thoughts about the future of the tribal land base. Go to the action plan. So you have goals, but you got to put that roadmap together. So St. Nicholas University has an action plan that's kind of serving as the base of our work this week. 4 areas. Yesterday, we focused on the reaffirmation of sovereignty through education. And what we clarified for ourselves is that we've always had tribally controlled education, but with the evolution of reservations, boarding schools, all these elements, that tribally controlled element got away from us. And then in the 30s, you had the state government coming in. You had the federal government with the responsibility through treaties. Then you had state government in the 30s coming in and taking over basically Indian education through public schools. And then you didn't have tribally controlled education returning until the 1960s. We're about 50 years old as a movement, as a more recent movement. And yet that's just a small, we're young pups when it comes to talking about putting together this tribally controlled template for the education of our people. The establishment of Centegos University, St. Francis Indian School is an expression of that sovereignty. We're tribally chartered. And so as other governments take control of their educational systems, so too has the Rosebud Sioux tribe. And it's done that again through charters, and now we have a tribal education code that's guiding the development of the institution. Yesterday was a great work day. We had about 150 people here, but we had a lot of students. We had Centennial University students here engaged in talking about the future, and then we had the Generation Z. I'm talking about the high school students from Todd County and from St. Francis Indian School. And collectively, we put them through some exercises, and I see they got the evidence put away, but that's okay. But I tell you what, these young people were outstanding yesterday. I mean, they were absolutely outstanding in terms of knowing what the issues are and offering their aspirations and being very articulate about it, being very articulate. So we're committed to that continued dialogue with our young people. And when it's all said and done, in this action plan I'm talking about, and you're seeing goal number 4, but just to kind of touch base with this reaffirmation of sovereignty education, we have an action plan that has 7 items, and I'm going to go through them real quick. If we could get the partnerships all coming together, one of the things that we want to do is examine the interpretations of federal Indian treaties and commitments, and examine the correlations of these commitments with key federal, state, and tribal government policies. We have a treaty council established that could be a vehicle for moving forward in terms of putting a 21st century interpretation of the treaties, 1851 and 1868. I think that's going to come fast because there's new legislation, federal legislation, called Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015. What it's calling for is stronger engagement of tribal consultations between tribe, state, and federal government. And it sounds like we're starting all over again with that effort, but quite frankly, the treaties, the Merriam Report of 21, as recently as the Indian Self-Determination Act of 75, all have the pieces of how the federal government and tribes are supposed to engage. We're not going to reinvent anything new, but we have to step up and hold the federal government responsible. Putting those interpretations 21st century is going to be a key thing here. Number 2, in terms of an action plan, activate an interagency initiative to undergo a comprehensive inventory of human and land resources. Folks, we rely on a 2010 census to give us a handle in terms of data about who we are and where we're at. We need to do that ourselves. We need to do that ourselves. And that's what this is talking about, an inventory, if you will. 2 resources, people and land. Reaffirmation of sovereignty, number 3. Increase personnel resources to update tribal enrollment and address blood quantum issues. Right now, we have this federal blood quantum that was imposed by the federal government, 1/4 more, and it's raising havoc with tribal enrollments clear across the country, to the point where some people cannot meet the 1/4 blood quantum, And so the tribes and the Cherokees are famous for it of Oklahoma. They're moving to lineal descendancy. So you can be 256 Cherokee and still be enrolled. Part of the problem here is that we intermarried and we can't necessarily control who falls in love and how the babies come, but the enrollment issue is really important. And we didn't establish that. The federal government did, but we adopted it through IRA, Indian Organization Act of 1934. We need to address the blood quantum issue. And I make mention of that because the Lakota tribes were bands at one time. They weren't tribes, separate tribes. And in about 1985, the collective body of Lakota leadership here in the state said, we're going to move away from that blood quantum system and come back to something different. And they had committed themselves to more of a Lakota, Oceti Shikawe kind of blood quantum, as opposed to a Rosebud or a Pine Ridger or a Flandreau, whatever. And they haven't followed through on that. And I think that's really an important thing we need to do. So again, addressing the tribal enrollment and blood quantum issues is key. Number 4, establish and actively pursue an agenda of legislative priorities for tribal, state, and federal governments. Man, that dude in the White House right now, he's going crazy. He's making it happen. He's making it happen. We have to do it on our own terms. We can't be reacting, we have to be proactive. So we really got to roll our sleeves up, talk with each other, communicate, and figure out what it is we want for an agenda in the future. Reaffirmation of sovereignty, this goal. Number 5, realign internal mechanisms and data systems supporting documentation about how tribal fiscal resources are procured, distributed, and accounted for. How are we spending our money is the bottom line. How do we get it? How do we spend it? How are we held accountable for it? The tribal council's meeting right now. In part, that's why I think some of our tribal program people couldn't be here, is the council's meeting right now. The 80s weren't too far back when President Reagan got in and did what Trump's doing right now, is just slashing the spending. Centegos University, along with most of the other tribes, about 95% of our resources are the federal government. Committed in part by treaties, committed in part by obligations from the federal government. But man, to come in and just start whacking away, we saw that happen in the 80s. We saw that happen in the 80s, and so we have to, again, look real hard at our fiscal resources and look at how we're utilizing them. Number 6, under this reaffirmation of sovereignty, number 6, we should bring together resources to fully activate goal setting and interagency strategic planning of tribal economic development. And the vehicle we have today to do that is the Rosebud Economic Development Corporation, REDCO. We have a vehicle now for planning and bringing that all together. Interagency strategic planning. That's what these forums are about. That's the mandate that the university is pursuing right now. It's a lot of work, yes, but again, it's about an effort to put the agenda together on our own terms as opposed to someone from the outside doing that. The last thing under reaffirmation of sovereignty, number 7, examine the impact of changes in restructuring tribal government, including the integration of traditional community and family leadership, the integration of elders, the integration of spiritual leaders, Teoshbe leadership, and youth representation. And that was a major message to our young people yesterday, that you are the future leaders. We need to have you involved, being engaged, and reach for that wisdom. Book knowledge is important, but wisdom comes when knowledge and experience come together. And we got to start bringing those experiences to our young people. So that's this call for action. That's kind of what this deal was about yesterday. And so today we're switching gears and we're going into the area of conservation of tribal homelands and natural resources. That's what you have up here. And again, I'm giving you folks a backdrop of some of the discussion that we want to have here today. Conservation of tribal homelands. Conduct a review of the relationships between tribal enrollment and tribal land interest, and initiate the development of an action plan directed at the preservation of the tribal land base. Address the diminishment of land fractionation, and address strategic planning for land and natural resources. I just came from experiences at United Tribes Technical College in Bismarck, and we were involved with the project in partnership with the Indian Land Tenure Foundation. And it was addressing the issue of land fractionation. And I have to tell you that there's two things that's going to put us on the ground if we're not careful. It's the fractionation of the blood quantum and the fractionation of land interest. This country doesn't understand that we have a political relationship with the federal government. It ain't a racial, it ain't an ethnic relationship. It's a political based on the treaties, which are backed by the Constitution of the United States, supreme law of the land. This guy going crazy this week, just flaunting it. He's just flaunting that Constitution. So everybody's up in arms right now in terms of what he's trying to do. That's on our doorstep right now. But that land fractionation is a huge issue. More recently, the federal government, through Cobell and through Keepseagle, mostly through Cabell, is pushing on the tribal land buyback. And some of our leadership would offer the idea, if we have to buy back our land 1 acre at a time, we'll do it. But that land fractionation project identified the big problem that we have, where on one particular parcel of land you could have 300 to 400 different interests. In our video project that we put together, we showed the example of someone owning a 5-inch by 5-inch piece of land and getting a check that cost $13 to make, and the check's for like 5 cents. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. But again, going back to the land base, there's some huge things going on, and again, I don't have to talk about the pipeline up in Cannonball right now, but there is so many undercurrents going on. It ain't just about a pipeline going under the Missouri River, which is a huge issue, and what's at stake, but there's so many other things. I actually believe that this pipeline is going to be the first volley of a civil war on water. It's here. I'm not trying to be dramatic, but it is here. So again, we got to start thinking about these things and start planning ahead. So under these 4 areas then, we talked about the land base, land fractionation, strategic planning. That's why we're here today and continue to be needing to come together. Number 2, create a tribal position paper on water resources. Mini Wachoni, we know that. And whatever happens up north is going to spill out down here. And so we better, again, look at these water issues. Someone said if that we sprung a pipeline leak up north, it'd just be a matter of hours before our communities are affected. Hours, folks, hours. And according to state legislator Sean Bordeaux and Troy Heinert, the state government has no mitigation plans for a pipeline break. No plans at all. Serious stuff. Our reservation happens to be on top of the deepest part of an underground water source called the Oglala Aquifer. Over the years, they've been pumping for irrigation purposes, pumping out water faster than it could recharge itself. Faster than it could recharge itself. And if we're at the deepest end, what are the implications for us? Climate change, global warming are very real things. Maybe you believe it, maybe you don't, but I've seen the evidence, and I know it's here. And there's one word I could say: tsunami, blizzard, tornado. Grandmother Earth is letting us know things ain't in balance right now. And so in terms of water, those are important issues for us to understand. Water quality, it ain't just the water source, but the water quality. We have some of the cleanest water in the country. The Missouri River is the last untapped reservoir of clean water in the country. The last untapped reservoir of clean water in the country. You know what's holding it back? Indian water rights. Indian water rights. More recently, the Crow Creek Sioux Tribe has stepped up and taken those steps forward in terms of quantification, water quantification. Man, it's kind of good, but it's also, when you take that first step, in the end, what are you moving toward? Quantification. You get this much water, you get that much water, and you get that much water. And once we're locked into those deals, there ain't moving away from that. And we've seen that in Colorado River down in the southwest, and other examples where water quantification has had serious implications. And we do have water rights. We do have water rights. And so how do we mobilize ourselves around this, these issues? Because again, water is life, we know that. Number 3, under our action plan, if we were to begin and able to bring everybody together, move forward, we conduct forums like we're having today to determine how goals and effective planning will be carried out for land and natural use by individual tribal members, by Teoshbe cooperatives, the cooperatives of the Teoshbe families, through interagency partnerships with tribal land enterprises. TLE apologized, they couldn't be here this morning, but they're coming this afternoon, I guess the tribal council's meeting, but they are definitely on board in terms of helping us look at these issues that we're talking about and moving forward. 4, examine viable economic initiatives for the tribal ranch, timber reserve, bison reserve, land acquisitions, and renewable energy. There's Kenny Hawkins talking to us, renewable energy. One of the things that brought me home is 22 years ago, I was working on a project, bison project, to reconnect our people with Pateo Yate. And the goal was to use tribal colleges as the vehicle for bringing us back together. And now I come home and we have over 600-700 head. And so Centegos University is now taking the lead in demonstrating how, again, through collaborations and partnerships, we can, again, bring our relatives together with us. More recently, we were approved, of course, the bison right now are currently around campus, but more recently, we were approved for a 10-year lease through TLE for Mustang Meadows. We're going to take our relatives to a better place in the southwest part of the reservation and continue raising them. With the goals of, number 1, education, cultural preservation, with the goal of nutrition because of our physical and spiritual health. And someone's got to pay the bills, so yes, number 4, there will be an economic part of it, but mostly just to pay the bills. And so we have a plan in place. We have a plan in place to move ahead with this by this spring and begin relocating our relatives. You know, it was really funny because I'm talking about blood quantum, and just a short story about our Buffalo experience. It took us over a good year to have tribal people knowledgeable about bison to join us, because they kept on saying, Phil, why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys doing this? And so when we finally came up with a tribal homelands philosophy that suggested that they're spiritual beings, that they're relatives, and if they're relatives, you don't produce, you don't manage your relatives, you caretake them. And if you're caretaking them, you don't probe them or cut off their horns, or even worse, you treat them as relatives. We're trying to be good relatives. And so that was a pretty profound knowledge coming forward. And once we shaped that philosophy on paper for the other tribal colleges, the doors opened up in terms of the knowledge. One of the things they said was don't mess around with the DNA, genetics, because we had a university, Texas A&M, approach us about doing DNA research on our relatives. And the question was, they wanted to answer was, of all the buffalo herds around the country, how many are purebred buffalo herds? Because what happened at the turn of the century when they wiped out all the buffalo to almost under 1,000 head, Charlie Goodnight down in Texas, a Texas rancher, he attempted to introduce and bring together beef to try to save the species. Well, here you are almost 100 years later finding out that in the DNA there's a genetic marker for beef. So through genetic testing, I can find out if you have this beef genetic marker. As tribes, we said we're not going to participate, just going to leave it alone. That's what the elders said. So they basically went in the northern plains with mainstream ranchers, bison ranchers. And when that report came out, there was a howl. You could have heard clear down to Texas. Why were they howling? Is what ranchers thought they had was purebred bison herds, all of a sudden had a little beef mixed in. Why were they howling? they're marketing their buffalo meat as being superior to beef, and it is, in its purest nature. Leaner, healthier, less cholesterol, all these things that we're finding out because diabetes is so rampant in our communities. So that's what they were howling. It was all about money. It was all about money when it's all said and done. The how. And you got a little beef in you. As Indian people, we were laughing because we said, we've been through this experience before. You're asking Teayate, how much buffalo are you? We've already been through that experience of saying, how much Indian are you? Blood quantum. So those are issues and lessons learned as we continue our journey in rebuilding, revitalizing who we are, the land base. So again, going back to those issues of land and natural resources, those are some of the things that we're hoping to talk about today. These things are anchored, like I said, in our strategic plan, but we really are hoping for a more comprehensive plan for the Sichangu Lakota Oyate. On the education side, we are moving forward with the Sichangu Education Alliance. Not an original term, but it's calling for something that we've always heard of bringing all the education institutions, all the stakeholders really, because we're all part of the education community, bringing all the stakeholders together under one game plan. From prenatal, because things are happening to our people before they're born, to when they make this journey to the spirit world. They call it lifelong learning. School's always in session, folks. School's always in session. And we've always had that tribal education model of at every phase, every chapter of our life as Native people. There's always been a preparation, an educational process to be good relatives at that point in our chapter in life. I'm blessed here, 7 years now. My first grandchild was born, and man, it's a new chapter. It's a great chapter. It's a great chapter. And so we move like that through life. And so we need to look at the educational system, look at the educational models, and look at how we need to do it differently. We have a priority right now at the university of dealing with accreditation. And you've probably heard the president talk about the challenges in the early days of the university about taking on accreditation. And basically you got someone from the outside coming in and saying, are you the real deal? Are you a real college or a real university? And most times these people aren't very informed about who we are. They don't know about treaties, they don't know about sovereignty. And so we have a huge chore in front of us. It's just a matter of days when we have to submit a report in preparation of a visit April 24th and 25th. I don't want to be dramatic, but it's going to be a serious photo finish to address these issues that we're talking about, more on the academic side, the educational side, but they're asking us, are we the real deal? How are you planning for the future? We had an enrollment one time of up to 1,200 students, one of the largest tribal colleges in the country. There's about 37 of them now, with probably about another 10 that are coming, emerging. Last semester's enrollment, 700. The enrollment for the spring semester right now, just a little under 600. And yet, what's happening in terms of human resource development? We have a lot of young people that are not in school. Not in school. And there's reasons why, legitimate reasons why. But we have to sit down, and again, we can't do this by ourselves as a university. One of the questions that we've been percolating for the last almost year now is workforce development. And what do we really need to do to begin moving forward? We're motivated in part because several of our funding sources are getting ready to dry up at the federal level, and we better be ready to have another game plan or we'll lose out those resources. We talked about housing, and we're led to believe with the housing shortage that we have here, we in our timber reserve have enough resources to build 300 houses a year. 300 houses a year. Right now, we're waiting for a forum with the new housing director, Cheryl Prue, and seeing what we can do again in a partnership and bring our career technical education program together, St. Francis Indian School's got one started. Todd County had started. We need to come together and look at how we can address workforce development and specifically housing issues. Those are just some of the thoughts I'd offer to you in terms of landscape backdrop of what we're trying to do here today. And so I want to do several things here. I'm going to ask Sherry Redow, the Vice President of Community Development, to kind of share with you what we're doing with what we call Tribal Land Grant Program. She'll kind of give the background of that. And again, your program directors, I'm giving you a little time here to get some thoughts put together. The questions, again, are this. Hello, Rachel. Good to see you. The questions are, what, in your own backyard, in your own office, your own organization, what are the key planning areas that you're working on? And then what are your priorities? Number 2 question. And number 3, talk about the impact or what you see in terms of workforce development. And I don't know if I'll have it here today, but if you haven't seen the most recent publication of the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, they laid out a dozen major positions of educated people that we, jobs, if you will, that we need right now. I mean, right now. And a lot of these jobs involve science, technology type of backgrounds. These kids here yesterday brought it up over and over again. Give us some educational program that has science, technology, because they have a sense. Those are the stepping stones toward getting the knowledge to step into these positions. What's scary for me, what is truly scary for me, if our whole tribal identity, our political identity is contingent upon having a land base or no land base, and the UN, United Nations, has an outline of what qualifies as a nation, you have to have a land base. You have to have a land base in terms of talking about yourself being a nation and being sovereign. I hear, because of their so-called trust responsibility for land resources, that in 5 years, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, Department of Interior, has a plan to get out of the tribal land realty business. If they step out, who steps in? And if I'm doing this right, in 5 years, we got a lot of work to do in terms of creating the professionals, the technicians, the policy making to take over management of land resources. And what's at risk, if we can't do it ourselves, someone will come in and do it. And we could do it the old-fashioned way, capital way, and outsource that. You outsource tribal land management, you're not in control of it no more. And then you got a wild man out there in the White House doing his stuff. Not a good recipe right now. And I'm not trying to get political here. I'm just saying here's the reality that's upon us today. So I'm just offering you a few thoughts, and again, we're going to ask Sherry to come up, talk a little bit about our what we're doing, and then I think there's at least 3 or 4 programs that are here. Share your thoughts with us. Share what your thoughts about your work, where you're going, where you're at. The key thing is looking for the common ground. What can State Gillespie University do to help each other in partnerships, collaborations? The Sichongo Educational Alliance I talked about earlier, we're already partnered up with St. Francis Indian School. We're already doing about a half a dozen different things under this alliance because we can't do it ourselves. Superintendent Dr. Whitney was here yesterday at Todd County. We're knocking on her door next. We invited Head Start. Unfortunately, they're not here, but everything starts with early childhood, so they got to be at the table. And the list goes on in terms of the stakeholders and the commitments. So I leave you with those thoughts here this morning. Again, for those of you that just joined us, President Bordeaux wanted to offer his regrets. He's on his way to Rapid City for a funeral. He'll turn around and come right back. But again, we really appreciate you folks being here. Like I said, we had a great day yesterday. Tomorrow we're going to get more into the human services program, the self-sufficiency of the Oyate, human services, I should say. And then on the 4th day, on Thursday, we're going to talk about the revitalization of Lakota language and culture. So we got some great forums coming up, and with that, I'll ask Sherry to come up and talk about SGU's land grant programs.
Good morning. SGU basically has 3 pots of money that we call our USDA land grant programs. We have the USDA Equity Project, and we're in the 3rd year of a 4-year grant. And this project is to develop curricula to train bison ranch managers. We're not making a lot of progress with it because we've been doing a lot of reorganization around our buffalo ranch. We recently negotiated a lease for Mustang Meadows, where we'll be moving part of our herd. We have a contract with Wild Idea, which markets organic or grass-fed buffalo, and we use that process in order to keep reducing our herd every year, because we're very concerned that the 2 pasture lands that we have are overstocked. And this past year we reduced the herd by roughly 210, 220 buffalo, which we did sell part of those to Wild Idea. The university itself every year uses 12 buffalo. We use buffalo for the student lunch program. Our programs use it in feeds and things that they do. Tiwahi Lukinipi, which is our equine therapy program and child mental health program, uses 1 buffalo a year for their various meetings, and then they distribute some to their families. Antelope Community, as part of our lease agreement with them, we give them 2 buffalo a year. And then, of course, for our Founders Day, our Founders Week activities, and for graduation, we, as the university, use it. And any dinners or feeds we give during the year, we use buffalo meat, mainly because we believe it's healthier, and we believe that that spirit of that buffalo and that meat connects with us as tribal people, and we want that spirit within our students and within our tribal communities. The purpose of our buffalo herd, I heard somebody say, well, the buffalo are more important than anything at the university. Well, they're not. But the importance of the buffalo at this university is to reconnect us with who we are as tribal people. In the beginning, we were the Teoyate, and we need that reconnection with that spirit today. Another part of the Buffalo Project here has been a Buffalo Arts Project. We had a small grant from American Indian College Fund, and we were able to offer classes that teach traditional arts that are being lost. They're endangered traditional arts. One of those endangered arts is the parfleche, hide tanning, hide painting. We offered doll making using buffalo hair and buffalo skin. And all of these things have led to the development of a curriculum that will be a certificate program in Buffalo Arts. And there was 2 reasons that we did this. One is that we want to show that every part of the buffalo was used by our people. Secondly, it could be an economic project for the students who learn to do the various crafts. Actually, this buffalo hide here is painted and somehow it's turned the wrong way. Hide was one of the projects that the students painted in the classes that we held. And economically, if you looked at that hide, right now with the painted hide, and it would probably sell between $5,000 and $10,000. So it could really be an economic project for a student. It would almost pay for a full year of college. The other project that we have is the USDA Extension Project, and that project is based on food sovereignty. We're in the third year of that grant, and we have the greenhouse, which propagates plants for sale, but they also plant demonstration gardens and work with communities to teach basic gardening and to help communities plant gardens. Last year, when they went to identify community gardens, they found that communities really didn't want to plant gardens. They didn't really want to work together to plant gardens, and that, but there were individuals that wanted to plant gardens, and we work with Rosebud Extension. So I believe was it Parmalee Community, Rachel, that they did individual raised garden beds. And so this year we're looking at that possibility again. Only one community planted a community garden last year, Milks Camp Community. And they've been planting a garden at Milks Camp, I know, for at least 5 years. And our program provides communities with plants that are propagated and with seeds. We don't have the equipment to be able to go out and plow gardens. The communities would need to identify their garden place, till their gardens, make sure they have a water source. One year we had a community that planted a garden, but they didn't have any source of watering the garden. So when we're looking at community garden, we're looking at those things and how we're going to support those communities in developing a garden. I think one of the other goals of the grant has been to look at developing a farmer's market where individual gardeners or communities that garden can market their excess products so they don't go to waste. We've been working with Redco's Green Project as well, and helping them with plants and with education projects. The third pot of money that we have under USDA is called an endowment. And this is for tribal colleges, 1994 land grant colleges. It was a fund that was set up by USDA in 1994 when they declared the land grant colleges for tribal colleges. And the income from that is used for an endowment. The amount that colleges receive is based on their Indian student count. So when our Indian student count goes down, the amount of money we get goes down. Basically, that pot of money in our institution is used to support personnel and equipment that the other USDA grants don't support. We currently support, for example, we bought a new tractor for the horse ranch this year. And we provide the salary for the horse ranch for the equine therapy. Other uses sometimes have been, we use about 10 or 12,000 a year for community workshops in leadership. We did a Lakota how-to series last year with Rachel's program and brought in Amahar horses to do cradle boards, and we did a moccasin making workshop and several other how-to Lakota workshops. This year we're going to be trying to take some of those to the communities themselves so that we don't expect people to travel here, but set up a day or two workshops on the community. And that's basically what we're doing with our USDA programs right now. We do have a lot of partnerships. We do a lot of networking, and we're always asking for help, especially from the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the state extension programs and conservation. So we do try to work with other programs. Thank you. Why don't we start with the tribal programs? At this time, I'd like to see us start with our tribal programs. And let's start with the early birds. Emmy Boyd, you're with Game Fish and Parks, is that? Yeah. We'd like to have Emily come up and talk. We've asked them to respond to a couple things. We asked them to respond to a summary of their department, their priorities and goals, ways that we can help, or ways that we need to connect with them.
Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Boyd Valandra. I'm the biologist for the Game Fish and Parks Department in Rosebud. I just want to say a little bit. I wasn't actually sure what to prepare, so I don't have an official anything going, so I just have some notes here. I was kind of hoping it would kind of be more of a discussion, but this is fine. At least we're getting the word out. So I just want to say thank you for SGU for having these conversations. I think they're important. They need to happen. I myself am a tribal member. I've lived here my whole life. I attended school here. In high school, I actually started taking classes at SGU through their dual enrollment program. I went to college and came back, and I've been working for the tribe since 2009, I believe. So just to answer a couple of the questions here, the first one is asked about what are your key planning objectives. So just this last year, we got a grant actually to kind of start all over on some levels, I guess, for our planning. So what we really wanted to do is reassess where we were at a department, what was our vision, how does that vision align with the overall vision of the tribe. And our hopes by doing that was to say, okay, this is who we are as natural resources, or game, fish, and parks. You know, even that, our name's up in the air. So this is who we are. This is what we currently do, this is what we should be doing, and this is why we're not doing these other tasks. And so our hope was by identifying what we're doing versus what we still need to do, it would help us build, go after more funding or build better plans or build infrastructure to hire more people to get these other tasks done. So that's kind of why we wanted to take a step back and look at the overall planning for our department. So the first round of the grants were used kind of to get out some community input. We set up booths at various events to try to get community input involved as far as what does our tribal members want? How do they want us to manage their resources? Do they like hunting? Things like that. Unfortunately, we haven't got the best outcome in those. We still have them available online. If anybody knows anybody, we'd sure like to get more information from the public. So if there's any more events like this, or if communities themselves would like to, invite us to come talk, we'd really like to get as much input from communities as we can. So with that comes our Chapter 35 of the Tribal Law and Order Code. So that's kind of what we're looking at. That's what governs us. So that's as far as planning. We need to address that first. There's lots of things in there that go back to maybe the 70s, 80s that are really outdated and need to be looked at. So that's where we're also going to be starting our next step, is redoing our chapter of the Law and Order Code to make sure that our laws are first what we want them to be, and second, that they're enforceable. So after we get the chapter 35 going and our new vision statement, we want to be able to enforce that. And so part of that is working with communities, working with tribal members, working with our guides. So one of the main reasons, or another main reason I should say, why we were looking at redoing our overall planning for the department was we felt that we were kind of getting away from our main goal. What is the main goal of the Department of Natural Resources? So to us, our main goal is the conservation and the protection of our natural resources. So in order to do that, first we need to identify them. So that's kind of where we were started all over. But also what happened, because as many of us know, funding kind of drives the show for a lot of programs. And the way that we get our funding is through hunting licenses. And so because of that, sometimes hunting ran the show, whereas hunting is actually just a tool, a management tool, that we use to manage our herds, to make sure that they remain healthy, to make sure that the numbers stay in check, because they're not living in the natural state that they once were because of roads and fences and houses and communities. So our job is to make sure that we provide habitat that mimics that natural environment as much as possible, and to monitor their, monitor each species. And so for us, getting back to that conservation is really our top priority right now. So that has to do with identifying conservation zones, areas where animals can find sanctuary, areas where the grasses and the habitat can evolve the way they're supposed to. One thing that we're incorporating that is fire. A lot of people think fire is really destructive. Well, actually in the natural scheme of things, fire in this area was about once every 5 years. So you could see that by not having fire, we are severely impacting our plant life and the surrounding environment. So those are things that we're also trying to look at. And I don't want to say that hunting is not important, because it is. Traditionally, that's how we food and provided food and clothing and shelter and all of our necessities. So if that's what we want to get back to, we want to foster that. But we don't want to encourage a lot of some of the sport and waste hunting that's going on. So a lot of our emphasis is going to come from education as well. Why do we hunt? Again, back to the conservation piece. So something new that we did this year is we were the first tribe in South Dakota to sign a memorandum of understanding with the state of South Dakota. So we have this agreement now. There's not anything as far as law enforcement or anything like that. This is strictly for wildlife, habitat, and conservation. So we could do things like cross-monitoring, or for example, our turkey numbers have been really low. There's people on state land that don't want turkeys. So we were able to go get those turkeys, relocate them, and bring them back. So it's just fostering a relationship that's going to benefit all of us, because the deer don't know when they're on the res and when they're on state land. They don't say, oh, look, there's the fence, let's go around. They don't know that. So by taking both parties having responsibility in that, we think we're going to benefit get the most benefit that way. So through that, we developed another walk-in area. So we're up to 5 now. And this one is along the Bennett County line. So we're doing a lot having to do with elk and deer depredation on cropland versus, just a little background, the state would prefer maybe not to have elk in the prairie. They kind of think the elk would be better in the hills, in the timber, because of the agricultural that goes on in this area. Whereas the tribe, we feel that they are part of our culture, part of this land, and we believe they should be here and conserved. So having those two directly conflicting management strategies seem like we should be butting heads, and we have in the past. So by having these agreements and having sit-down conversations, we're able to see, well, how can we both get a little bit of what we want, or how can we benefit the wildlife, or what our main goal is first. So those have been starting to come along as well. So for the hunters, that's why we have some areas that you're still allowed to hunt, but maybe not drive into. And just another question, I kind of going all over, but they're also asked about what our workforce needs and requirements. I think I highlighted a little bit that our planning, once our planning lays out where our gaps are, I think our next step would be going after funding to either implement those new programs or funding to hire more people to implement these programs. Because no matter what, I'm the only science-based person in our department. We have law enforcement officers, we have people that make the department run, but we are lacking as far as, fisheries or plants, or, I can only do so much. So by bringing this to light and working with, SGU, or working with students, or having jobs or projects ready for people to get training, I think that's something that we could do. I know I'm jumping into the next question, but that's something that I think the department really needs to do a lot more with the students here, because I know in the past, like my generation, just saying the word science or biology or ecology kind of just automatically scared people away. But the cool thing about our younger generation is they're not as scared about those types of things. They don't get thrown off. They kind of, want to take on the challenge. So if we can provide some opportunities for them to get experience to see, do I really want to do this? Do I not? I think that would benefit not only the students and our department, but everyone as a whole. So I know I'm rambling a little bit, but those are just kind of my main notes.
Question.
Yeah.
Prairie dogs.
Yes.
What happened with prairie dogs?
So the prairie dog thing is a really big issue. So what happened last year is I had these big plans, I wanted to do. And so my first 2 species of concern were prairie dogs, because that covers my grassland, ecosystem. And then I picked deer and elk because that took care of the timber and some others. So my goal was, if I focus on these animals, I'm also focusing on some habitat. So what happened when I started approaching committees and council was, anything having to do with deer, hunting, anything, was fine. But once we got to prairie dogs, it became a political roadblock on many different levels. So prairie dogs themselves, I don't know why, but people either hate them or love them. There's not really much of a spectrum in the middle. Either you're a nuisance because you're directly competing with their cow for grass, and a lot of our people in their area, that's how they make their living, so we can totally understand that. But where our department gets, a little confused or gets a little, what are we gonna do, is they are a wildlife species, and our goal always first is conservation. So in order to conserve a animal or a species, we need to talk about it and we need to identify it. And we can't even have that conversation because, land operators and, different people have all have their own. And so our hopes in that is identifying an area, maybe even 2, where we could say, okay, this is going to be our conservation zone. Anytime that the acreages goes beyond that, we can control that, we can poison that. Or let's set up buffer zones around communities and around housing, and anything that encroaches within that area, it gets poisoned or it gets out. But I haven't even been able to get to that point because I get shut down on the first meeting. So I know it's a big issue at SGU and has been, because look at them, they're everywhere. What happened is they found a niche. There's no other biological or environmental predator that's going to get them, because they're protected by the dogs and the people and the cars and everything, other than, the stray, a badger that came in maybe once a year. That was their only real predation. We got it all set up to relocate them. We got people trained, we got traps. The first time didn't work out because the person who was gonna come from Colorado to do it for free, he got sick and he wasn't able to come. And then the second time, whenever we were gonna try to live capture and move them, it got stopped on council and committee level because no one can agree on where this conservation zone is, because no one can agree on who do we get to tell you can poison your land and you can't. So our best option as a department is just to say, okay, well, any units that we utilize, then that's gonna be the only one that we have control over. But unfortunately, that's not how nature works, that's not how these animals work. A lot of times people forget that a prairie dog is a mammal. They have babies that drink milk. They stay with their mom, they have to wean them. They don't just go out and eat grass the first day they're born. They have a very, very in-depth social hierarchy within their systems underground that we don't get to see. So for you just, so I guess that's why it gets a little bit iffy on what are we gonna do with them. So ideally, I would like to have a big map, which I presented multiple times, to say, okay, this is where prairie dogs are in Todd County. This is where we're gonna allow them not to be poisoned. Anywhere else can be poisoned. But until I can get a committee and then a council to approve to that zone, it can't go anywhere. So unfortunately, prairie dogs on a lot of levels are up in the air. Other than this last year, our Environmental Protection Office was able to work with the EPA and have somebody come down to issue individual applicator's license. So if you as an individual want to be an applicator, you can. But even then, it's not organized, it's a free-for-all kind of deal, which we would like to get a little bit more monitoring, because there are some bad poisons out there, and there's some bad application methods out there. So if we could get either a tribal program or somebody within the tribe to monitor this, I think it would go a lot better. But when it's a free-for-all, really nothing gets solved.
Is there any evidence of invasive species threatening land or animals?
What type of species, like plant, animal? We have lots of we have lots of invasive species. For example, the BIA, they identified tracts of land that have species, but you have to meet a certain requirements. So like our buffalo pasture, because it's buffalo, they're eligible to spray in there, but our other walk-in area, because we don't actively have cattle or any type of animals in there, it's viewed as a cropland, so we're not allowed to get the spraying done. So we have to be a little bit more creative in how we get the funding for those. But yeah, there are several species of invasive species that are out of check. I mean, when we retained the flats out by the Bennett County line, I can't remember what they're tall. They look like a cactus, almost, little skinny. Yeah, so those are everywhere. And we didn't realize it until we got the lease back. And so even working with tribal management, land management, or people who are doing their management plans, maybe having discussions or having trainings on plant life, because a lot of people might look at their pasture and they might see a green plant growing out there, so they think their cow is going to be fed. And the reason why I think this is because having conversations with not all, but some of our operators, and you mentioned things like a cool season or a C3 plant versus a C4 plant or anything like that, and you just see blank. That to us tells us that they don't understand enough of the process to even make a long lifetime business out of it. If you don't understand how you taking care of your animal and taking care of the ground, or how that they interact. Because when you do what's best for the cow, you're not doing what's best for the grass, and vice versa. So that's why we do rotational grazing and things like that. But that's a little bit out of our department. That goes into more land management.
We have trust lands in 5 counties.
Mm-hmm.
How stressed out are you in terms of trying to?
So as far as enforcement, that's really where it becomes tricky. That's really where it becomes tricky is the enforcement. So the 5 county, he mentioned the 5 counties spread across. So we had an issue with retaining our rangers, and that mainly became with funding. When you can go as an uncertified officer to our law enforcement or correction facilities and get paid more than one of our certified law enforcement rangers do, it's hard for us to recruit and retain. So we go through rangers like crazy just because, this is an awesome job, it's an awesome opportunity, but it should also be a career opportunity. And when you're a family person, or when you can't provide for yourself and your family, unfortunately, money talks. So we're having a constant turnover, but that then trickles down into the enforcement. So not only are we having a low manpower because we can't retain them, but we're spread across such a large area, so that does become an issue. So that actually probably could work. Okay, so her question had to do with prairie dogs and not having natural predators, and so they also had an assessment done by the environmental health, and they said that they wouldn't probably recommend poisoning because of the close interaction with humans in the same area. And it makes sense. So her question was, what other options do they have as far as bringing a predator in to try to control that? And so I think that that could be something that would be a very good research project also for not only helping with this nuisance problem, but also educating as well. So ferrets would be an option, but it's not going to be your answer because ferrets are very solitary. So when you look at, like, I don't know, say a 50-acre prairie dog colony, there's going to be one dominant ferret in there. You might have a female that has a family, but you're going to have one dominant. They're they're mean, and they're very solitary, and they're very territorial. So that's one reason why they're endangered, because we can't breed them fast enough to keep up. But two, that's not going to control your predator because they're only going to be killing enough to sustain that one or family. So badger, again, that could be an option, except badgers move a lot. They don't stay on one town. They stay there for a couple weeks and then they move on to the next town. So what I would recommend is some type of combination where you're doing a live trap removal, but you're also going to have somewhere to take them to and present them to. Ideally, what we looked for was a town that had been plagued out or that had been poisoned out, where the burrows are still intact, but there's no other animals there. Then you could just take them from one town to another, let them go, and they'll go. But if you were to take prairie dogs from here and go put them in the pasture, they aren't going to have adequate time to burrow and find, build their own homes by the time everybody dies. So in that case, you would have to take an auger out there and punch a bunch of holes and just hope that they got something established before, rain or whatever. So there's options, but I think it would always have to be a combination of removal and then let nature kind of come in. The only issue with letting the natural predators is the location to the communities and the stray dog issue. Even if we try to trap, a lot of times the stray dog would set off the trap before the badger would or something else like that. So that's when we would have to be a little bit more, in the past what they did was they would have a science class every day, set out traps and put peanut butter in there, and then they wouldn't set them, they would just leave them open, and that's kind of what you do anyway. But anyway, you let them go in and get used to that cage, and then on that last day, then you set the traps. So then all 2 weeks, those animals have been going in and out eating, so then that last day when you actually set the traps, you're gonna get a higher percentage of capture. So those are things that we could work with a science class or some students that are, looking for hours or whatever to do something like that. But unfortunately, it's not just gonna be a one shot and you're cleared unless you came in here and poisoned. Yeah, exactly.
In your management planning, what cultural resources do you have to help understand it from a cultural perspective?
Which part? Everything or prairie dogs? Yeah, so that's kind of another reason why we started, and another reason why we were trying to open this up to community members is because that's what we want to drive, is the cultural aspect. And so what we piggybacked on is several years ago, the land office had hired a local elder or local tribal, knowledgeable tribal member, and they drafted a very nice vision statement for the tribe as a whole. And a few years ago, when I helped do the forest management plan, we inserted that. And my hope in doing that was by saying, okay, if the tribe adopts this as their vision statement and then it gets passed, then we're kind of locked into following it. Whether they read it all or not, we are. And it was awesome because it was in our Lakota language and it broke it down, but there was also a little twist of like a legal legality to the way he wrote it. And then, of course, translated that into English. And so that's what we use as our main vision to tie us back to the cultural of talking about where we come from, that everything has a spirit, that we're all connected and keeping that balance. And so we're just trying to take that a step further and make sure that our projects and everything kind of align with that. Any other questions? No, I totally agree. Hmm. Hmm.
Woksaka is at the top. That's wisdom. But you need all of those virtues to get Woksaka. And that's what we're getting here today. So I just want to say thank you to you guys. And, you have a very hard task trying to address the land issues, trying to address, ranching. It supplements a lot of incomes here with cattle. But, I hate to step on toes. It doesn't do one thing for our lands. They ruin our berry system. I come from a family that we had to go out and do this stuff. There was no, hey, do you want to do it? There was, get in the car, let's go and get it done right now. So there's certain times of the year that a lot of us, we still follow the seasons. Come fall time, we know that we gotta dig certain medicines because it's good. We gotta get dirty. We also know that when you dig those medicines, you have to set it aside and dry it. It comes with the process. One of my Tukashla gave us answers right then and there, and there'll be no lesson to learn. So I just, I want to encourage everyone to listen to these people that are here today, because they're the ones that are dealing with our land. And if we want to stand and feel the power, the sichu of Uchimaka underneath our feet, then we have to listen to what it's saying underneath before we can go up ahead. Oh, that's it.
Thank you very much. I agree with all of that. Thank you guys for having me.
Next, I'd like to introduce Mary. Do you want to come up and talk about your project, or you're not prepared? Okay. We have the Sichango Land Office here, and Paula, I think, is prepared to tell us about the projects that they're working on currently. Paula Antoine, Director of the Sichango Yate Land Office.
Good morning, everybody. Chante Washte Yuhana Pechizapi. Good morning. My name is Paula Antoine. I'm the director of the Sichango Yati Land Office, and I'm also Lakota and Dakota. My Lakota name is Wopilawi, and my grandparents are Frank John King and Pauline Shields, and also Lawrence Antoine and Mildred Hawkes. So I am from this area, and I'm also from Melk's Camp. And I just want to say that I always enjoy coming over to Founders Day's activities, and I appreciate the invitation of the Senegloshki University and asking us to come over and give a presentation, because to me it's all about our education and having our people have that knowledge, because it's power, and having a place on our reservation to empower our people and build the capacity of our communities is something that we cannot measure. So I really appreciate what Senegloshki University has done for our community and what they continue to do. And I have a couple of my staff members that are here too. I'll introduce them when I get to the point, but I would like them to kind of talk about the things that they do within our office too. But I think Emily kind of touched on it, and I was looking at the call for action and listening to the Senegloshki University's action plan and some of the goals that they identified to reach, improving the community and developing the partnerships. And to me, it's really important that we do that, but also fall back and always use our culture and our spirituality as a base for the catalyst of building them relationships and collaborations in the community. And Emily kind of touched on it, and we had a vision and mission statement that we had created a couple years ago. And we had that, and it was given to us in Lakota. We did not write it that way. So it was translated to English. And it talked about how our people need to recognize everything from underneath the ground, the minerals, all the way to the sky, to the stars, and how them are our resources, and how we need to look at them and integrate them and worry about them and start planning for the future on the protection and utilization of those resources. So that was what our vision statement was. And I think last year I brought some and I handed them out. I didn't do that this year, but if you would like that, if you would like to see that vision statement, it's really a comprehensive vision statement, and it's written in Lakota. So it's really, if you speak Lakota, it has so much more meaning, but you can understand where it was coming from. We had elders get that in a ceremony for us so that we won't forget anything that we need to work on. And so I was looking at some of the action plans, but I just wanted to give you like we do have information that we put out about the land office and about some of the things that we do. And underneath that vision statement that we have for the overall resources and land, we developed this mission statement and some of the things that we're going to do as the land office. And some of the things that we do at the land office is exchange assignments, and he was talking about the fractionated interest out there. And we do have that mechanism in our tribe, TLE, of being able to combine fractionated interest for usable pieces of land, which is done through our office, or you have the opportunity to go to TLE and sell that land back to them. But there are different options that are being addressed at the tribal level for fractionated interest. And some of the other things that we do are, that's what I was stating, the exchange assignments. And then we also work on residential and business leases. And I have one of my staff members here, and his name is Lance Dorian, and at this time I'd like to have him come up and talk a little bit about his area of the land office. And it's such an important part of our office because that's our major source of revenue, is the business and residential leases. Lance?
Good afternoon. My name is Lance Story, and I work for the Sichangu Oyate Land Office. I am the lease clerk, and I also do GIS work for the tribe. I'm from here. I'm a tribal member. My people were from Lower Cutmeat. A lot of people don't know where that is, but it's north of, if you just keep on going north of Parmalee, there used to be a community out there called Lower Cutmeat. That's where my people are from, Gray Eagle Tail and them. But what I do at the land office pretty much is if you want a home site or a business site, you pretty much bring your paperwork to my office and stuff like that, and then I'll lay out the guidelines, or I'll lay out a path for you of what you need and where you need to go through all the programs. Pretty much all the programs that you have to visit are supposed to be here today. You got to go to the water resources and have them sign it. You got to go to your community and have them sign it. It's all laid out. And what I do is pretty much walk you through the steps of what you need to do to get either a residential lease or to get a business lease. And business leases are a little bit different. You need a business plan and stuff like that. But all in all, once you bring the application to me, I walk you through the steps of what you need and what steps you need to take. We work closely with the TIPO office and Russell Legal Bear and them, because to get a home site, pretty much not everybody knows this, but you have to have a cultural survey, and that's for any area of land that has not been surveyed. So that's pretty much what we do. We process the applications, we send everybody to the right places. Once your application is, what he was talking about is with BIA stepping out. BIA is usually the last process, or the first and the last process is what you do whenever you apply for a home site. BIA has all the maps. They have all the GIS maps of the open land and where the possible home sites are. So you go to the BIA and you get a map, and they'll give you a track number and a legal description of the land that you want. And then you bring it to me, and then I'll lay out the application for you. And usually you sit down in my office, and I'll walk you through the whole entire application and tell you what you need to do. And then the final step is I take the application before the Land and Natural Committee, and they decide, yeah, we agree with this. We're gonna give them a home site. And then the final step in the application is I take the application to the BIA office. So it pretty much starts and it ends with the BIA office. I think we take it to the BIA office, and then their superintendent signs it, and then they send it to Aberdeen. And then Aberdeen sends it back to me, but at the same time, they'll send their application back to you. So once I get your application in the mail, and this is where the fun part starts, and then I write you your first invoice. Now, on your first invoices, residential leases are usually $25 a year. So annually, you'll pay $25 a year, which is pretty much $10 an acre. The average home site's 2.5 acres. And for business sites, they're a little bit bigger. What are they, 5 acres, 10 acres, 5 acres? Depending on how big your business site is. And if you are a veteran of a foreign conflict, and then usually that qualifies you for more land within the tribe that's in there somewhere. But that's pretty much what I do at my office. And my goal for the future is, and what I'm working on at the land office this year, is kind of bringing everything up to speed into the 24, nowadays I'm trying to digitize the whole process. Because whenever I got there's just files and files and files in my office that I have to go and search through and pull them out and stuff like that. So what I'm trying to do is get them all laid out on the computer and digitize the whole system. So what I do is from this year, I'm gonna start from January, I'm gonna start from the beginning, and I'm gonna put all of them leases into a computer. See, I'm trying to make the process as simple as possible, because it already is a simple process, but what takes up most of the time is actually finding the physical file and putting it on my desk and researching it and going through it, and doing things like that. Whenever we could just have it on a computer and just have it on files and just bring it up and have all our information in there. And with the GIS, we're looking at doing that too. Like, so whenever you open up your GIS map, you'll have that, and you'll be able to see the home site, and you'll be able to see all the information and everything that has to do with that home site. So this way, whenever the only time you need to open up that file is to put new information in there, or if you lose the file. And that's pretty much what I'm gonna be working on in the next year at the land office. And then also another thing I'm gonna be working on at the land office, this is kind of a big issue. You said talk about things that kind of keep you awake at night in your program, is there is a lot of non-active leases in my office. Whenever I go through and research the files, there's a lot of leases that are either 10 years behind or they haven't been active in a long time. And as I'm looking around, there's a lot of young people in here, whenever they want to sign up for a home site and the home site's already taken by someone who hasn't paid on their lease for 10 years, or someone that just has never paid on their lease, but they have a lease. So what I want to do is go through and look at all these leases that are inactive, or in people that haven't, that are delinquent on their payments, and see about getting them turned back or making them relinquish them home sites, so the younger generation that come up, whenever they want to apply for a home site, they will have open land to apply for their own home sites, because we only have so much land, and not everybody's using their home sites. Most of them some of them ain't fenced off, and that's kind of where our compliance officers come in, but they're not here today. And qualifications, pretty much for working in my part of the office. Whenever you work at the land office with me and Paula, it's whenever you deal with the land, we kind of ask that you be walking a good way. You know what I mean? Because sometimes whenever you go out there and deal with these things. So if you go out with Russell Eagle Bear and them, you know what I mean, they don't have no tolerance for any of the drinking or anything like that whenever you go work with them. So that's how I believe. And we're always we're looking for people that, you know, can file, have good can work with computers, GIS, and then stuff like that. Can work with the land. Pretty much, I sit in the office all day and do stuff. But you know, one of the favorite parts of my job is actually going out and getting to see the land that you look at a map all day. You can look at the land on a map all day and know all the sections and all the things. But it's really good to go out there and put your feet on the ground, walk around, because you know, in theory, if you look at the map and something's there, you know what I mean. You don't really know if it's there until you actually go out and touch it. You know what I mean. What else did we have on the list for here? I left it over. Oh yeah, well, that's pretty much what I do. Just send people's bill in the mail, you know, and bill people, and yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, he's the bill guy, so. And I just wanted to talk about some of the other things that we've been doing, and I was talking a little bit with Phil about it. We built up the land office over the last couple years, 6 years. That's how long I've been at the land office so far. This year will be my 7th year. And some of the things that we've been working on that's kind of coincides with what the college is doing is building the relationship and collaborative partners within the community, like with SGU. One of the things that we did with SGU in the past is we were meeting about developing curriculum for land, you know, expanding and revising the curriculum that's already here, but also developing and complementing the existing curriculum that's here, but also recognizing the needs of the community and the needs of the tribe in relationship to land management. Like, for instance, we were talking about brand inspection. We're talking about soils and different things. I think that Deidre is talking about that, and how we identify the things with the land, but also at the same time keeping in thought the stories and our traditional and cultural protocols that go with that. So having that knowledge available to the people that are going through the land management courses here, and being them to apply them in realistic situations through the land office and through TLE and the other areas of land management at the tribe. But some of the other things that we're doing is, one of the things that I helped with when we first started is they wanted me to work on the revision of Titles 18. And right now, there's been a lot of question on that revision. Title 18 still exists. It's a tribal code that won't go, you know, it's always going to be a tribal code. But the revisions have not been approved yet. So we worked on the revisions, and it took us a long time to do that. And how we base that is on a traditional form of meeting. And in traditional meetings, they allow, you know, they want different representatives from each generation, like for instance, a baby or a child, a youth, an elder, men, women, people from different areas of our lives to contribute to the meetings, because it gives everybody it helps everybody remember what we're doing things for. You know, that representative of each group and demographic puts in our minds and tells our spirits why we're there and what we have to remember in some of the decisions that we're making with that land use code. And I think that it turned out very well. We had a few hundred people, almost 200 people that participated in that revision process. And I could talk a lot about that, but I want to go on and talk about some of the other things that we're working on, hopefully in the future, that the land office will become kind of like a city planning office where all permitting goes through the land office. I think it had something to do with the land. If I keep talking, I'll remember it. But the other things that we're working on is not only the development of that database, but also with the development and the enhancement of our other land-based departments, like working more closely with Game Fish and Parks, TLE, and developing some of our own policies and procedures within ourselves, or processes that will better suit the tribe. Like, for instance, we now have compliance officers, and they have a certain, we developed a schedule for them. What he was talking about is, they will not only be working on compliance for, non-use of leases, like business leases or residential, but also for violations on the land use code. So they'll be looking out for other violations and working with BIA and TLE on addressing them issues before they get out of hand. So that's another thing that we're working on, the compliance. And when we're doing the planning, when we're doing the planning, I really keep in mind the vision statement that was given to the land office. And every, every step that we take and every meeting that we try to keep that vision and that mission statement in our minds, because it's all about the future, the future generations, whether they're going to have usable land that's uncontaminated. We're working, they were talking about the different aspects of water protection and protecting the water resources that we do have. And that's been a really important thing that we've been doing here too, because she mentioned the KXL, prior to that permit, in the past years, we did have our spiritual camp that was located near Ideal, which is my own home community. And we had a spiritual camp, and that spiritual camp was established and done through our tribal council. So, I can't tell you right now if that's what our direction is going to be with that in the future. That would be under council's authority to decide whether we're going to redo our spiritual camp. But that that permit has been submitted from TransCanada to the State Department. So we know that they submitted that application and that they're considering redoing that permit. And so that does mean, from my understanding, it is the same route. So it will be coming adjacent to our tribal lands again. And so that's another battle that we have to worry about. That's another thing that we have to come together on. And I just wanted to let you know that we did have a camp located up at Standing Rock, and I was involved with that, and the council made the decision to pull back on that because their council asked us to pull back on it, so we're complying with their wishes and doing that. So right now we're in the process of moving some of that equipment and bringing our people home and helping with the cleanup up there. But through what happened at Standing Rock, there are many organizations and entities and people, individual people, and there were like 787 nations that came together to stand for the water there. And there are so many resources and networking opportunities that opened up for all of us. There were so many meetings and ideas that came out where we could take back to our own individual tribes and communities. And we all decided that, in using everything that we learned and all the tools that were made available and the capacities that were brought there to help the communities, to bring them home and help strengthen our own community. So it was really a good overall experience, but, and I hope that in the future that through our relationship with SGU and the other tribal entities that are here, that we have the opportunity to increase and help our community. Because from this point on, with the world and the federal government and everything being so uncertain as it is, it's more vital right now for us all to come together and share our ideas and bring down a lot of barriers that were keeping us from moving in that direction before. Because the only way we're going to be able to survive the next 4 years, from my opinion, is to have a more unified front together. Because there's a lot of scary things happening out there right now, and a lot of federal policies and different races and groups of people that are being attacked right now. And so if tribal communities and tribal bands, you know, and tribes in general, and organizations and entities within their tribes join forces, they can't stop us. You know, our most powerful thing is our people and our prayer. And if we can come together and move in a positive direction together, I think that our grandchildren will benefit from it. So if nobody has any more questions, I'll.
You have a staff of 12. What capacity do you have in land appraisals?
The land appraisals have to be certified through BIA, so whenever there's a land appraisal, we submit that request to, there's an option of hiring someone, of course, but I mean, they have to be certified, or I guess that's not the word I'm looking for, but there is certain land appraisers that we use. So yeah, we don't have an appraiser on staff, and actually that's one of the things that did come up in our conversations that we had in the expanding of the land curriculum in our meetings with SGU before, because there was a long list of certain topic areas that we were talking about that were needs, and that was one of them.
In the area of waste disposal, how does that fit in with your work?
Waste disposal, solid waste is the program that usually handles that, but we also we participate in things they ask us to. So anything that has to do with solid waste, I'll leave that up to Tammy to answer them questions. But when she does have projects that require our assistance, she asks us for that, because I think that one of the things that she did ask me, and that I can share with you, is that she asked and thought that it was a good idea to start working on, as other areas like tribal utilities, we were talking about establishing a intertribal coalition of different reservations of that same department, so other reservations can start working on with us, having certain language in our tribal codes that support each other. So if there's any businesses or any companies that try to come through one of our areas and aren't happy with the codes or the regulations that they have to follow through one reservation, they try to skirt to another reservation to get through South Dakota. But if we had standardization of codes and an alliance created of the different reservations within them codes, it would be more supportive of each other, and that's something that she was working on, along with utilities. That's another area that we were talking about, and permitting.
We couldn't get an appraiser to get on our reservation. They would have to go through the BIA. In my opinion, the Sichonku Land Office is there, so we don't have to utilize the BIA. You know, we're at a point in our lives where we should strong enough mentally to get through these procedures. But as far as real estate and our lands, you know, President Trump right now, he's trying to privatize. And I don't know if you guys know what that means, but back in the day, 640 million acres were taken, and that became the Grand Canyon, that became Blackfield National. That became all of these public lands that are called national parks now. And before they became them, those were sacred lands, and they still are. And so I want to know, as Sichongu Oyate Land Office, you know, why don't we have a real estate appraiser? Why don't we have someone with a degree in cultural resource that can actually interpret intelligently the codes, the zones, the land, the laws, the regulations, so that we can thrive? All we get are strategic planning process, perpetual planning stages. Why don't we see 10, 15-year, you know, something happening with our lands that's productive? I want to know that. You know, I see too many times that things get slipped by because of politics. You know, there's a lot of issues that our people, we want answers to. And I'm really happy that you guys are up here, that you're doing all this and that. I'm really happy about that, but where is your education in it? Where is the knowledge of it? Because in my opinion, our fight up in Standing Rock, we're not getting anywhere because nobody knows these laws and regulations, and they can't stand up to the white man and say, hey, this is happening to our laws, our lands, you guys are messing up. Every time that they bring out a new law, it's because they got caught lying about a law previously. Every time they do that to us. And every time us Lakota can't go at it, we can't even stand up for ourselves because we haven't did our homework. We haven't did our research. We're content with bringing in a consultant to do it for us. Get home, get on. You don't need a college education to be concerned about our water. Every day you look at our lands, Sichongu Oyate Land Office, TLE, they're in control of our leases. You look at our lands, and all you see is pivot irrigation. Our Unchimaka is getting poisoned by nitrates, and because of no clause with the state of South Dakota and Sichongu Oyate, they're getting it free. They're taking our water, they're pumping it out at 3 billion gallons a year. And are our Alatis getting anything? Does even our tribe get anything? Do we even get a stock of corn so we can maybe dry it and make some washtunkala? Do we get that? Duale. So I want you guys that are listening, ask questions. Ask questions. That's the only way you're going to get the answer. And you're not going to get it by just shaking your head. You're not going to get it by just saying, oh, okay. You have to ask. I'm not trying to ahoya anybody. I'm not trying to say that you guys are doing bad. I just want you to explain to us what we want to know. We want to know what those laws are. We want to know what you're hired there for. We want to know what that paycheck represents. Not just cool digitized, you know, technology. We want to know that our lands are protected and that you're going to stand up and lay your life down. They always say, we're ready. Are we? Or do we need a GoFundMe to get us there first? So you guys think about that. Think about our lands. Today is the most crucial day of these forums because our land is our biggest resource and it is all we have left. It is our only extension to the Creator. I'm not here to get mad at anyone. I'm here to get mad at ourselves. I'm scolding myself because I feel like I could do more. I feel like I owe more to all these little kids, all these little takoja that are coming up into this world that are coming up blind because my generation, we're not fulfilling that obligation as Lakota. We're not giving them our knowledge. We're not giving them our time. We're not letting them get dirty. You know, we're too worried about how we look, how our image is. Get dirty. Get yourself acquainted with Unchimaka. Let yourself, if you know that your grandma has land, you better start memorizing those tracks and you better get out there and you better know where that land is so when it comes time, you can fight for it because that's all we have left, our land. Pilamaya.
So you were asking about our educational level and how our understanding of tribal laws and national laws and pertaining to the protection of our land? Well, if you want to know my personal education, I'm a candidate for a master's degree in community economic development, and I've spent the past 6 years going over as many tribal laws and treaty as possible. I attend every treaty council meeting that comes available, because the importance of networking and visiting with the elders and having our own understanding of the treaty is what is important, because it is our interpretation of that treaty and the relationship to our own land and to our own connection to that land. And with the deterioration of the reservation, that was based on in I think it was in the 1970s is when Kanipe took the reservation to court, and that's when it took our tribe to court, and that's when we lost jurisdiction in Tripp County. And as far as the mentality goes, you know, I have put my life on the line. I have stood in front of armed riot police. I have read every law that comes to it. I've stood in the permitting process through the KXL and through Dakota Access Pipeline at the South Dakota PUC level. I've read every report that could possibly put out, trying to look for any fact that would support us in our opposition to the contamination of our water and our land. And that's even including landslides. You know, who would think that South Dakota has landslides, but we're in an area that has a large number of landslides, and we're thinking about a mountain coming down and causing massive deterioration and destroying villages, but that's not what it is. In South Dakota, if you drive along and look, you can see the landslide areas where there's a 6-foot drop in an area, so you see the land coming down. That's what's going to affect these pipelines. That's going to affect the water lines. That's going to affect a lot of things, a lot of the contracting and the extractive industries that are trying to invade our treaty territory. That's only one of them. You know, there are so many different laws that are available out there. And I do try to reach out to other people. You know, that is why when we did have the KXL battle, we went, you know, there was a time when people that were on our team, we spent 6 months constantly working. There wasn't a day where we were off. We were always at a meeting, and sometimes we went off in teams to go out and try to network and reach with other people on how we were going to attack this together. You know, it wasn't just about our tribe. And it's easy to point a finger at somebody if you don't know what they're doing. It's easy to wonder what's happening unless you read the right newspaper, unless you read the right thing. So it is important to educate yourself. It is important to know what kind of land your family has and where it's at. You know, like for instance, during the KXL battle, I had people who are fractionated interest holders of an area by Crow Creek and Lower Brill. And on that land, they were going to build a transmission line that was going to support the KXL pipeline. And these people were trying to get help to try to come together so they can stop that transmission, that transmission unit there. And so we tried to help them. You know, people from grassroots people and people that were working for the tribes came together both in Pine Ridge here in Rosebud and in Lower Brill and Crow Creek to try to get that, to try to stop it at that level. So it was so many different levels that we've been working and trying to research, not only through the different permits that have to be established for each one of them pipelines, but also in recognizing that Section 106, the Tribal Historic Preservation Act, and how we're going to work at that at different levels, and how our tribal codes complement and be used as a guide for them federal laws, and try to demand through the federal government and through the state levels that we are recognized through tribal consultation, because that's one of the most important things that we need to demand is tribal consultation. And we need competent people who are sitting in them consultation sessions to recognize the fit between our cultural values, the tribal codes, and how the federal government needs to answer to each one of them.
My name is Phil Two-Eagle. I'm the director of the Sichongo Lakota Treaty Council. I just had a question about where we are going with our land issues. A strategic plan, if there exists one, should include the contracting of all BIA services pertaining to land. As part of nation building is for tribes to be in the driver's seat, that we be making our own decisions with everything that pertains to our future. And I don't know where we are at with that. I hope in the near future that we are looking at contracting all of those services, because that would make us more sovereign. We talk about asserting our sovereignty, and that's one of the ways to do it, is to be in the driver's seat, but also to have competent institutions that our tribe can delegate to organizations that are chartered under the Rosebud Sioux tribe, and that as far as I know, the land office is a good place to start. It's I guess a regulatory duties of the tribe to enforce the protections for our land as our Sichongu. And I hope within my lifetime that I can see that our reservation boundaries could be expanded to Melick County. I don't know where we're at with that, and we should be majority owner of Melick County. So just wanted to express my curiosity pertaining to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And I think that was another question that I did not get a chance to answer, Hadedra. But one of the things, the reason why we're trying to develop and solidify the technology policies and the procedures in our land office is to start moving towards contracting 638ing land operations for BIA. And that's been one of my major goals, to take over the responsibilities that's held within that office. And I've expressed that several times, and that I've received opposition from the Bureau, as you would expect. And that's it's really hard to move in a direction if people think that they're going to lose their job. And there's a fair amount of opposition that does come up because of that. So there are a lot of politics that come into play that I have no control over. But that is one of my charges that was given to me, and that I take full-heartedly, is there is no reason for any federal agency to do what we can be doing by ourselves. Because in being a steward of the land is what we always been and what we have in our hearts because we're Lakota. Why do we need the Bureau to tell us what to do when we know what we need to do? So I feel exactly what you're feeling and that we are moving in that direction and to develop policies and to make sure that we have the mechanisms in our office to ensure the security and proper management of the amount, like he was saying, there's certain number of tracts of land that have hundreds of fractionated interest. We have to have that ability to be able to manage and monitor all of them individual tracts and interests within, you know, that 1 million acres. And of that 1 million acres, there's only a few that are not under contract right now. And a lot of them contracts we're in control of leasing and business leases and helping with the exchange assignments. But the grazing units and all the other leasing are handled by the Bureau. And we need to get control over that, and that's exactly what is part of our plan. And it may take a long time, and I don't know if I'm going to have the opportunity to be the one to make sure that this tribe goes in that direction, but I will do what I can to make sure that we are moving in that direction and do have that foot in the door to make sure that we can reach the sovereignty, the empowerment, as Phil was saying, to reach that level of competency and capacity to fully manage our lands by ourselves as a tribe. The Pick-Sloan Act, the Pick and Sloan Plan. Oh, yeah. Are you talking about the creation of all the dams along the Missouri River? And
Take it all, and I believe that they did it illegally. So I was wondering if anybody's ever looked at that.
well, there is a water alliance that is the members of that water alliance. I think they're having a meeting right now, actually, in Flanders, South Dakota, to address some of them issues, because there's a lot of things that go along with the management of that. And, you know, one of the things that how the tribe is involved with that is a thing called the programmatic agreement. And that programmatic agreement talks about the management of the Missouri, even down to the ecosystems and the participation levels of the tribe is not what we want. You know, we want more control. We want more ability to have says in certain processes that happen at the at that level. And a lot of that, you know, I can personally say I do know a lot about that too, because my grandmother and my grandparents had land right below where Pickstown, South Dakota is. We had a ranch there, and it was flooded, you know, so we lost a lot of land there too, and we lost our home. That was called the White Swan Community, and that's where my family's from. Yeah. You know what? They didn't give money. They gave land in different areas. So my grandmother has land that's scattered all over 6 states, because they said, oh, we're taking this piece of land, so here's a little bit here and here's a little bit there. So, you know, our family has fractionated interest in Wyoming, North Dakota, Montana, South Dakota. It's all over the place. So it wasn't money. It was, yeah. Yeah, and that's, you know, that's where a lot of things happened when they did assign land agents in our history. And if you want to, there's a lot of information about, if you look at the, yeah. Yeah, and in that distribution of electricity, tribes were not included in that. There are certain agreements that come with power purchasing and power buyers contracting. There are certain regulations that go through the Department of Energy that limit our ability to be part of that. And that's one of the things that at a national level, I know that there are tribes that are working on that, but here at the local level too, with the development, currently the tribe is developing our own Tribal Utilities Corporation. And to be able to step into that energy arena is something that we want to do. And with the tribes that are along the river, there have been, contracts that were made with electricity and distribution, but I would have to do more research on that because I know Crow Creek and Laura Brule and Ihanktawan also had some kind of agreements, but each one were addressed individually. So instead of doing it as a whole, they separated everybody, and it diminished a lot of rights of each other because the other one didn't know what the other one was doing. So that was a strategic move too. So, that's just like researching history too, so. Yeah, I think that's, like what I was talking about, the different coalitions that are out there right now. I think that the tribes are realizing the importance of them banding together and using each other as support, like the Great Plains Tribal Chairmen's Association and all the other subsequent coalitions that have started to try to support each other. So when they do one thing with one tribe, the other tribe is aware of that. And I think that they're trying to alleviate that from happening, what kind of took away a lot from us in the past, so. Oh, like cases that have set precedent in our water rights. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you for the participation in this. This was really a good discussion. Right now, we're going to ask Francis Cutt to say the lunch prayer. Our cooks are getting ready to serve as soon as the prayer is offered. This afternoon, we'll continue this discussion and hear from a few of the other programs. Mary's going to tell us about NCRS. Rachel's here from the Rosebud Extension. Ann Wilson is here from TLE. And then hopefully we can have some discussion around some of the needs that we have as tribal people to look at how we protect our resources to become self-sustainable. If you'll all stand for the lunch prayer.
One, two. Oha ai o tapi o watche ke mosi e pringtalom. Hoya tronka shela haya ke wichoka hiya wa el o Rani on kähi punkaan wopila hetsalo. Hona vai bichoye na tako wasteste na onkompik on lena hoja wopila on kenitjapelon. Lena trokata kia aviuksampi, niin tako ei chumpik taheti hena el onsunkin lapo. Hojan kaan petu kyllä elää voite on kitupik tiukaan. On kitiaste po hetsen on transampi on aaripik lena iwas akinkteun. Hoja hetsehte on petu kyllä el hojevailo. Hojan kaja voite kyllä hoja ikiktupinaha hektäkeä vuonsilla. Onkia po na bichoza ni un grupo ea hojevailo ho hetset olla ho mitä köjäsni.